Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
This is one of those stories that was sent to me by everybody. And it involves several things we talk about here quite often, including cars, cool cars, and old cool cars, but also a form of forfeiture. Now, this is not civil asset forfeiture in the traditional sense, but it is an interesting case because a legal action has been filed against a thing. And that's what they used to do all the time with civil asset forfeiture. It doesn't happen as often anymore. But technically speaking, when the state, the government, seizes something and wants it forfeited, they'll often file an action against the thing. So you hear about a case called like the United States versus 99 barrels of alcohol, or the United States against 15 bars of gold. And that's like, okay, the United States is on one side versus bars of gold on the other. Like, that's not a person. No, it's a thing. It's an action being filed against a thing. So Kansas Justice Institute fights to return a classic Corvette to an innocent owner. Now, this is from WIBW Channel 13. Sarah Motter and Melissa Brunner wrote it, and it was sent to me by a lot of people. The story's out of Kansas. And now, it's kind of complicated, and we're going to have to actually do a little bit of digging here and a little thought experiment, because some of this is not spelled out, but it's clearly between the lines. Overland Park, Kansas, the Kansas Justice Institute is fighting to return a classic Corvette to a Johnson County man who's been found innocent of any crime as the Kansas Highway Patrol seeks to destroy the Corvette. Kansas Highway Patrol says it's not a question of the man's background or his innocence, but about state laws governing vehicles. Now, the Kansas Justice Institute filed an amicus brief in August in the District Court of Johnson County in the case of the Kansas Highway Patrol versus 1959 Chevrolet Corvette. That's the actual case. KHP versus 1959 Chevrolet Corvette. The group urges the court to protect the private property rights of a vehicle owner, someone recognized by the Kansas Highway Patrol as innocent. So they're saying, look, the guy did not commit any crimes that we know of. We'll say that right now. But there's a problem with the car. So KJI says asset forfeiture is when the government takes a person's property without a criminal conviction. In some cases, the person is never even charged with a crime, as was the case with this man. Asset forfeiture is bad enough, but it's especially bad in this case because the government admits he did nothing wrong. Well, that's actually the case in almost all the civil asset forfeiture cases we talk about, where they take the money and they go, we think it was involved in a crime, but they don't charge the person. I mean, that's nothing new here. That's not what's new here. According to KJI, the man bought the classic car in 2016, so he's had it for about 5 years. When he went to register it in the state of Kansas, the Kansas Highway Patrol found issues with the car's VIN, the vehicle identification number. They then seized the car, even though the man was unaware of the issues. KJI said the state's attorney admits the man is innocent, but instead of returning the car, the state has spent years in court working to destroy the Corvette. Now, the KJI people say that the government should not get to destroy an innocent person's car. KHP Superintendent Colonel Herman Jones told 13 News, WIBW, that the case is not about asset forfeiture, but about the state laws governing what happens to a vehicle when the VIN has issues. When the owner presented this car for inspection, it was found that the vehicle identification number on the Corvette had been altered, defaced, or destroyed. Pursuant to Kansas statute, such a vehicle cannot be legally registered and must be seized as contraband. KJI disagrees, saying it is not right to hold the man at fault for, having a car that has a bad VIN. When the government knows someone is innocent, they shouldn't use their power and resources to take their property. Kansas's forfeiture laws are to blame. The United States and Kansas constitutions do not permit the government to acknowledge a person's innocence on the one hand, and then with the other declare the innocent person's property contraband and take it, says the man from the KJI. Both sides are wrong. And I'll tell you why. I've had a case like this. A client of mine bought a car, classic car, not this old, but close to it, an old car. Client buys an old car, takes it to get the title work done, and the state police, where he is, come back and go, your car is stolen. And he says, how is it possible? They said, well, the VIN underneath the dashboard, the one on the dashboard underneath the window, when you look down through the windshield? Yeah. Turns out that's not the VIN on your car. There's VINs stamped elsewhere on the car. They tracked those VINs. Turns out the VIN on the dash was forged, and the real VIN, which was stamped in 3 places on the car, said that car actually was stolen in another state a long, long time ago, and they seized the car and returned it to its rightful owner. And now here's the thing. This 1959 Corvette with the VIN problem, we all know what happened here. This car is most likely stolen. And most likely it was stolen, and somebody thought, I can't get this thing back in the stream of commerce with a stolen VIN. So what I need to do is put a different VIN on it and get it in the stream of commerce that way. So somehow, and we don't know what the problem with the VIN is. There's different things that can be done, and I'm not going to discuss them here because every time I do that, people go, Steve, you're helping the criminals by explaining to them how to do this. So I won't get into this. But there's ways to put a different VIN on a car and then get it titled and get it back into the process. But what happens is somewhere down the road, somebody with a little bit of know-how does some work and figures out that that VIN is incorrect. So now we got a problem because there's a federal statute on vehicle identification numbers. The federal government decades ago said, for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is to cut down on interstate auto theft and auto theft rings, we're going to require VINs to be attached to cars in such a way that the cars can be traced if they get stolen. And modern cars, for instance, have the VIN in more than one place. So in the old days, some cars didn't have VINs. They had serial numbers, and there was no uniform method of doing it. Now, VINs have 17 digits, modern cars do. And that 17-digit thing, it's a series of letters and numbers, not only is on a VIN tag usually attached to the dashboard, on one of my cars it's attached to the A-pillar, it's often stamped on the body elsewhere. It can be stamped on a frame rail. It can be stamped on the firewall. I can tell you right now, in a 69 Dodge Charger, one of these things right here, pop that trunk, over on the left-hand side, driver's side of the car, peel the weather stripping back, it's stamped in right there, okay? So the VIN is stamped in the vehicle in a variety of different places. If somebody did their homework, although I suspect they may have done this already, but we'll back up a second here. If somebody did their homework, they could figure out all the places on a 59 Corvette where the VIN appears. Now, if it only appeared in one spot and that was the tag, then we're out of luck. If it appears in more than one spot, the question is, what does the other spot show? Now, it does sound like they've exhausted all their possibilities here, right? It's possible they've exhausted all their possibilities. And it might be, for instance, I can tell you that if you wanted to, if you had one of these vehicles, you could pry the VIN tag off the dash and you could take a Sawzall, brand name, and cut out the lip of the trunk where the weather stripping goes, and you could cut a hole in the firewall or wherever else the other VINs are. You could remove all the VINs from the car. That could be done. Now, that'd be very suspicious looking if you bought a 59 Corvette and there's big holes where there used to be VINs. That might be suspicious. Now, somebody, of course, could cut the hole and put new metal in there and weld it, make it look nice. But the question is, did somebody really go through here and put new VINs in all those spots? Seems highly unlikely. So somebody out there, if I had to guess, is missing a 1959 Corvette. Okay, there can't be that many of them out there that have been stolen and have not been recovered. So what they need to really do is find out whose car this really is, because it probably did belong to somebody. It probably was stolen, and the VIN tag was then altered, defaced, forged, replaced, or whatever, but something was done to it. Now, is this man innocent? Yes, he is. Absolutely. It sounds like he is. We certainly don't have any evidence that he's not innocent. And of course, he's innocent until proven guilty, and they've not even accused him of anything. But if you buy yourself an old car, I would urge you to get it inspected. And one of the reasons you want to have it inspected is that somebody who knows those cars will be able to tell you things such as, oh, this vehicle's got the VIN on it 3 places, and all 3 of them match. It's good to know. I can tell you that, for instance, on a Z28 Camaro, one of the VINs is very, very difficult to get to. Really difficult to get to. But if you were to Google Z28 Camaro VIN locations, you'll find it almost instantly because that's how the internet works. And you'll discover that there's one VIN that's fairly easy to get to up by the front fender, and there's one near the firewall that's kind of hard to get to. So if you hired an expert to inspect your Z28 Camaro and said, I want you to inspect that car, number one, is it a real Z28? Because there's more clones out there than there are real ones. Is it a real Z28? And number two, does anything seem off about it? And so an inspector who knows what they're doing is going to look at it to determine whether or not it's a real Z28, what condition it's in, has it been restored, how good's restoration, and by the way, do the VINs all match? Do the VINs all match? Because quite often, the people who steal these cars and try to flip them back into commerce don't go to all the trouble of replacing all the VINs. They replace the obvious one that's easy to spot. The easy one to spot is right underneath the glass at the windshield on most cars. So here's the thing. A lot of people are up in arms saying, look, the state is wrong to want to take this guy's car. And I understand that point. But you do understand that there are laws regarding titles and regarding VINs. And so if you have a vehicle and you go, this vehicle is mine, you should be able to produce a title for it and say, this is my title. There's my title. Shows me as a title owner. And that title should then match the car because the VIN on the title matches the VIN on the car. Apparently, that's not the case here. And that's a problem. And so I'm not saying the guy's done anything wrong, but he is in a weird situation because there's federal laws on vehicle identification numbers, and there are state laws on vehicle identification numbers. And so I suspect that mistakes were made. But in reality, if this guy came into my office right now and said, Steve, what do I do? I would say, who'd you buy the car from? Because it looks like you may have been sold a stolen car. And that's a problem. And it might be that his remedy and his complaint isn't against the state of Kansas for wanting to take his illicit car. It's with the person who sold him the car because a thief cannot pass good title. I cannot steal something and sell it to you and have you get good title. Likewise, if that guy's not the guy who did it, maybe he bought it. And it's true that you often run into trouble where I've had a car for so long that the statute of limitations on the sale have run, but that's one of the issues. When you're buying an old vehicle, and I can't stress this enough, I have done so many videos where I talk about get the vehicle inspected. And when we're talking late model cars for transportation, yeah, you want the car to get from point A to point B, reliable transportation, safe and quiet, or whatever you want. You want that. When you're buying a classic car, especially if it's an investment type classic car, an expensive one, 59 Corvette, I presume costs some money. When you're buying something like that, you want it not inspected the same way that you get the 5-year-old Camry inspected. You get it inspected by a guy who knows Corvettes or somebody who knows cars. And the one thing they're going to do is look at the car to make sure that it's correct. I have heard people before who said that they bought a car and the year was wrong. And somehow the title said it was a 67. It turned out it was actually a 66 or whatever. And who knows how that happened. But you need somebody who's going to spot that kind of stuff, unless you yourself are an expert on these things. And it looks like this guy probably wasn't because he didn't catch this. And so there's something wrong with the VIN. Again, we don't know what it is. Something wrong with the VIN. But if I had to bet, I would bet that this vehicle was stolen. Somebody swapped the VIN plate and they didn't bother swapping the other things. And so my biggest question I have for all of this, my biggest question is, why can't they find the original owner? Because if the car was stolen, there's an owner out there right now who's still missing his 1959 Corvette. So it's a crazy case. And the reason I say that they're both wrong, I'm not saying that they should both lose or anything. I'm simply saying that the state should be putting this effort into trying to find the original owner. And the buyer, the guy who owns the car now, should have been looking at the person that he bought the car from and saying, hey, how come is it you sold me a car that I can't title? Because it's one of the things that you get when you buy something from somebody. We always think of the title as a piece of paper that comes with something. But true ownership is actually, the legal term is a bundle of rights. And the title is evidence of ownership, but it is not ownership. If you had a title and you lost it, you still own the vehicle. You just get a new title. The piece of paper shows that you own the car, but it is not what makes you own the car. So the title that someone's giving you when they sell you something. They're promising to deliver it to you with good title. And good title in this context means I have full ownership rights of the car that I can pass to you when you pay me. So I pass these to you, you pay me, I give you possession of the car, boom, now you own the car. However, it looks to me like there's a good chance that this transaction, when this man bought this car, he didn't get good title in that sense, the legal sense of the word title, the legal concept of title. Not the certificate of title, because he probably got one of those, but there's a mismatch with it, which means there's an issue with the bigger overall legal title. So there you go. From Topeka, WIBW, Channel 13, Sarah Motter and Melissa Brunner wrote it. Kansas Justice Institute fights to return classic Corvette to the innocent owner, and is sent to me by everybody. Scott and Deb, another Scott, John, Robert, Mark, Steve, not me, Gregory, Keith, Ross, Paul, Nathan, Kenneth, Karen, Donna, and Sue. Thank you all very much. One more time from the bottom to the top. Sue, Karen, Donna, Kenneth, Nathan, Paul, Keith, Ross, Gregory, Steve, not me, Mark, Robert, John, Scott, and Deb, and Scott. Thanks a lot. Questions or comments, put them below. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. I wish I could, but I don't want to.